Okay, think back to that absolutely incredible night in the movie theater. The music swells, Thanos sits down in defeat, and Tony Stark makes the ultimate sacrifice with a single snap of his fingers. The entire audience cheered, right? I mean, we spent a whole decade following these characters to earn that exact triumphant moment. But what if we've been looking at the biggest cinematic victory in history completely wrong? In this explainer, we're putting on our pop culture detective hats and diving deep into the franchise's lore to ask a massive, deeply unsettling question. What if the Avengers never actually won an Endgame? What if that hard-fought heroic triumph was, in reality, the ultimate inescapable trap? To really unpack this theory, we have to look at the motivations of the ultimate puppet master. Imagine the rumored opening sequence of Doomsday. It doesn't kick off with explosive chaos, massive alien armies, or a desperate heroic final stand. No, it begins with absolute terrifying silence. A silence that exists beyond the normal flow of time itself. Picture the citadel at the end of time we saw in Loki. A silent Kang standing there, observing the timelines branching and collapsing around him. He isn't fighting a war. He's watching like someone casually replaying a movie they've already seen 1,000 times. And then, with a cold, knowing smirk, he drops this chilling line. You think you won? To grasp the sheer magnitude of this trap, we have to completely flip our perspective. From the Avengers' point of view, it was a hard-fought miracle of survival and sacrifice. They barely scraped by, relying on sheer luck and an unbreakable spirit. But step into Kang's shoes for just a second. From his vantage point outside of time, this was a perfectly orchestrated chain of predictable events. While our heroes genuinely believed they were desperately fixing a broken, dusted universe, they were actually following a master blueprint. They were dutifully laying the foundational bricks for Kang's multiversal empire. So that brings us to the famous time heist. We all thought it was this miraculous, long shot that caught Thanos entirely off guard. But remember the stark warning the Ancient One gave to Hulk on the astral plane? She explicitly warned that removing the Infinity Stones from their timelines would create dark, branching realities. It wasn't just temporary damage control. That action caused the exact, intentional destabilization that a conqueror desperately needed to break into the main timeline. The time heist wasn't a miracle. It was a calculated fracture of reality. When they pulled those stones out of the past, they created invisible, spreading cracks in the bedrock of the multiverse, providing the exact fracture necessary for Kang to slip right through. And this completely changes how we view the absolute emotional core of the Infinity Saga. For years, we've mourned Iron Man, viewing his death as the ultimate symbol of heroism and the tragic cost of saving the universe. But if we analyze the evidence through the cold, calculating lens of a tactician who literally writes the timeline, the tragedy takes on a sinister new meaning. We have to re-examine Tony Stark's heroic sacrifice, not as a tragedy, but as a deliberate, tactical elimination. Why did the universe's greatest defender really have to die on that battlefield? Well, because Tony Stark wasn't just a guy in a highly advanced suit of armor. He was the ultimate wild card in the entire franchise. Think about it. He possessed a mind capable of adapting to literally any threat. He solved the incredibly complex physics of time travel, the whole Mobius strip problem, in a single night in his kitchen. He was a mortal man outthinking gods and cosmic titans. So as long as Tony Stark's unpredictable, hyper-adaptive genius existed, no one, not even a time-traveling conqueror, could truly dominate the timeline securely. He was the ultimate shield. His sheer intellect was an unparalleled threat, making his elimination an absolute, unavoidable necessity for Kang. Which brings us to the number burned into every single Marvel fan's brain: 14,605. Picture Doctor Strange sitting on the dusty surface of Titan, violently twitching as he views millions of alternate futures in a matter of seconds. We were confidently told by Strange that he found exactly one path to victory. Just one. But knowing what we know now about the sacred timeline, we need to dig into the massive unanswered questions of that iconic moment. Actually, scratch that. What if Doctor Strange didn't see a victory at all, but only the least catastrophic delay? Seriously, what if, in every single one of those 14 million futures he reviewed, Kang inevitably wins the long game? It's a terrifying thought. The one specific path Strange chose, where Tony dies, where they meddle with time, the exact sequence of events we just spent a decade celebrating, might not be a win condition at all. It might simply have been the sequence that allowed humanity to survive just a little bit longer, a controlled collapse rather than an immediate annihilation. Strange wasn't securing a victory, he was just buying the universe enough time to fight another day. When you lay it out sequentially, you can see this grand master plan being revealed right in front of us. It unfolds in 3 chilling steps. Step 1, let them time travel. Step 2, Let them fracture the multiverse in their desperation to defeat Thanos. Step 3, eliminate weak variants. This theory perfectly turns the Avengers' time-traveling heroism into the very mechanism of the trap. They stopped being defenders of a single timeline and unknowingly became the active catalyst for infinite, chaotic realities. Because as the lore explicitly tells us, infinite timelines mean infinite Kangs. This chilling reality reminds us that the rules of the multiverse are entirely unforgiving. By forcing the Avengers into a corner where they had to create these branching realities, they thought they were just saving their destined friends, right? Returning the universe to normal. But in reality, they unknowingly triggered a devastating multiversal war. They unleashed chaotic battles between infinite variants of the greatest conqueror in existence. Our heroes honestly believed they were saving the dam from bursting, when in truth, they were actively opening the floodgates. But all of this multiversal chaos serves a highly specific purpose. It's not just random destruction, it's a twisted tournament designed to clear the board and create the perfect Kang. Most of those timeline variants are just collateral damage. They fight each other, destroy each other, and inevitably collapse entire universes in their brutal battles for supreme dominance. This horrifying process removes rogue variables through cosmic natural selection. Eventually, only the ultimate, unstoppable Kang remains, the one variant who has seen it all, learned from it all, and controlled it all. This incredible theory forces us to look at every single Marvel movie since Endgame in a completely new light. Think about Kang's apparent defeat in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Fans called it a pathetic loss for a major villain. But what if past defeats were never actually failures? What if they were strictly data gathering? Every time a variant of Kang is seemingly beaten by our heroes, it's a deliberate test run, a calculated step to learn the hero's tactics, find their emotional breaking points, and further refine the ultimate timeline. He isn't losing battles, he's actively adjusting the parameters of the war. And this brings us to the core difference between the villains. Thanos relied entirely on brute force, massive armies, sheer willpower. Kang's strategy is far more terrifying: inevitability. Winning not through brute force, but by ensuring that every possible choice a hero makes leads directly back to you. His power is a deep psychological understanding of his enemies until they become entirely predictable. Every brilliant tactical plan they devise, every noble sacrifice they endure, always leads directly back to him. He doesn't need to break your shield if he can just rewrite the path you walk on. So how do you possibly fight an enemy who can turn your own past against you? Give this a tangible thought to help visualize the stakes. We all loved that beautiful, emotional moment when Captain America finally went back in time to share that long-awaited dance with Peggy Carter. Perfect ending, right? But what if even that deeply personal, beautiful choice was just Kang subtly closing a loophole to ensure Steve Rogers was off the board? Imagine the crushing realization for the Avengers when they discover their hard-won victories were manipulated. They aren't fighting a physical war. They're desperately trying to escape a story already written for them. Your victory was my beginning. That thought takes the tragedy and dials it up to a 10. Endgame was never the definitive end of a heroic saga. It was simply the first domino falling in Kang's ultimate trap. Picture that moment again. Tony snaps his fingers, Thanos turns to dust, the epic music swells. And somewhere outside of time, sitting in a lonely citadel, Kang just smiles. The Avengers' absolute biggest win was unknowingly handing the keys of reality over to a conqueror. It was his opening move. Now, let's look at the evidence supporting this theory, because the in-universe lore lines up perfectly. We've established that Kang operates entirely through inevitability and control. We know for a fact that the Avengers time heist directly caused the initial multiverse fractures. And we've seen how Kang utilizes seemingly fatal defeats to adapt and refine his timelines. Literally everything we've been taught about how time works in this franchise heavily supports the idea of this grand, inescapable trap. But okay, let's do a quick reality check with some counter evidence here. As much fun as we're having uncovering these incredible possibilities, we have to weigh them against major real-world studio shifts. We all know the news regarding actor changes and how completely that can alter a franchise's overarching direction. And beyond the real-world logistics, there's the sheer narrative complexity of rewriting Endgame's emotional stakes, asking casual audiences to suddenly accept that a universally beloved victory was actually a villain's setup. That is a massive, massive gamble for any studio. Which leads us to the wild card. Is Kang's inescapable trap still closing, or has a new doom already arrived? Seeing Robert Downey Jr. return, not as Iron Man, but as Dr. Doom, leaves us with a massive, provocative question. Were the heroes merely performing an elaborate dance for Kang, only for the architect himself to be violently swept aside by an even darker, much more familiar face who just seized control of the board?
The trap was set, but perhaps the wrong villain walked into it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the lore.